Now, let's watch the video.
Celebration of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I was going to say that you've been having this celebration longer than I've been alive, but then Dr. Olum just blew my cover out here talking about, she started speaking in the 70s. I'm like, sir, please. I was 2 when I started public speaking, okay? Actually, I did say to my oldest when she turned 37, I was like, I don't know about you. I'm 34, so I don't know how you 37, but that's okay, you do you. But truly it is a wonderful day, a wonderful celebration. And when I first heard the theme, I was so excited, empowering generations of audacious leaders. I mean, just the words, even if you don't know what they mean, they sound powerful, don't they? Audacious leaders. And then I've been enjoying the program so much, I was forgetting that I had work to do up here. And then Miss Amelia came up here and I was like, okay, I'm leaving. Why am I here? She has already done it all. But thank you, Amelia, and thank you to the award winners. Thank you for the work that you do. So when I was thinking about what do we do to empower generations of audacious leaders? How do we do that? And it came to me that how we do that is by encouraging our next generation to look back. To look back at those who came before us. That if you want to believe that what we see today is not necessarily what we will see tomorrow, then look back. Look back at those who were enslaved and refused to believe that enslavement was meant to be their lot, and stood and fought for their freedom. Look back and see those on the African continent, in Latin America, in the Caribbean, who refused to believe that colonial subjects is what they were meant to be, and refused to accept that they were somehow less than those who governed them. And said, we have absolutely the capability and the right to govern ourselves. And as we look back, I think it is important that we acknowledge and remember that none of those struggles was easy. That none of that change came overnight. So as we are empowering the next generations of audacious leaders, we need to let them know that the struggle is not easy. If you are looking for an easy struggle, then you're out of luck. You're out of luck. If the struggle you are involved in is the struggle for human rights, if the struggle that you want to be empowered for is the struggle for a better world, then you have to recognize, remember, and know that that struggle has never been easy. That those who profit from the oppression and dehumanization of other human beings have real tenacity. They will hold hold on to their privilege and power in almost any way that they can. And therefore, to be empowered, to be audacious, you have to know that what you are struggling for might not happen tomorrow. It might not even happen next year. It might not even happen in your lifetime. But the other thing that those who came before us taught us is the faith to believe that that change is indeed possible. I might not be an audacious leader, but I know that what has empowered and encouraged me has been looking at the stories of those who struggled against apartheid and never saw the end of that system. That they didn't stop struggling when they realized that the struggle was hard and that they might not see freedom. They believed in that struggle, if not for themselves, for their children or their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren, and so they kept on fighting. I finally got to vote in the country of my birth as a full citizen when I was 34 years old. So clearly this breakfast isn't older than me. See, I just keep blowing it every which way. But also voting in that election was my grandmother, who was 91 years old. And my grandma, I was an election observer, and I was going to be in a rural community monitoring elections. And so there had been a campaign in South Africa leading up to the elections because people were worried that people would be bullied and threatened about their vote, this first free democratic vote. And so there was a whole program around your vote is your secret, that no one will be able to know how you have voted in the booth. So before I went away to be an observer, I went to my grandmother and I said, you know, I'm not going to be here. So you can tell me who you're going to vote for. Just tell me, just whisper in my ear. And she was like, my vote is my secret. And I was like, okay. But then my cousin who took her to the polls said, I guess she just didn't want to tell you, because as soon as she voted, she told everybody about, I just got to vote for Mandela. I voted for, I was like, oh, okay, I see you. I see what you're doing there. But after that election, she and I were sitting in her bedroom, and she said to me, do you remember when you were growing up and you would say, okay, so let me back up a little bit. So in our culture, when the school report comes, when your report card comes, it doesn't end with your parents, right? You take it home, but then you have to take it up and down the street, right? Into all the homes. And then if you got really good grades, you get given candy and sometimes money. And if you didn't get really good grades, you get lectures. And I got a lot of lectures for some reason. I don't know, somebody was faking my report card. And because I was that child, when people would say, you need to work harder, I would say, why should I strive to do well when apartheid has already determined what I will be allowed to do as a black woman? That with the Job Reservations Act, that there are jobs that I cannot do that are reserved for white people. And so my grandmother said to me after we voted, remember when you would use that excuse for not doing well in school, and we would say to you, what you see right now is not the way it is always going to be. What we are living in right now is a lie about what our country is meant to be. And one day, the truth will come into being. And she said, remember how we used to say that to you. Remember how we used to tell you that we believed you would see a free South Africa in your lifetime. But look at this, my child. It has happened in mine. So she got to vote at 91. She never got to vote again, but that experience of being a part of the change she had dreamt of, she had fought for, and having fought, never believing that it would happen for her, but knowing it would happen for her grandchildren. That is what it means to be audacious. It is to know that we might be living in a lie right now, but the truth will always be victorious. Audacious means that when you listen to the voices of those preaching hate, division, trying to dehumanize and diminish others' humanity, you look and you think, what a sad person you must be. What is your value of yourself? How can you have a sense of your own humanity if it can only be based on diminishing others? If your sense of your being, your sense of your importance, your sense of being called into this world is based on the ability to hurt, to torture, to kill, to dehumanize, then you have very little sense of your own humanity. I learned that lesson from one who has been my hero one of my heroes for a very long time, Bishop Malusi Mbumlwan. I know you all thought I was going to talk about my dad, didn't you? Thank you, got you. Bishop Malusi Mbumlwan, who was a young student activist, was in college when I was in high school, and he was one who the apartheid government arrested over and over. And you know how in situations like that we find ways of lightening even the darkness of oppression. And so his friends used to say to him, I know, man, Malusi, you know what it is? What it is that when the head warder walks around the jail and sees that there's an empty cell, he's like, what? There's an empty cell. Somebody go and fetch my Lucy. And we need him in here. That's how often he was in prison. But he talked about one of the occasions when he was being tortured by the security police. And he says, I don't even know where this came from to me, but I can only believe that it was God. Because what I heard, what I felt was these people need us so that to help them reclaim their humanity. Now, I can't promise that if I had been in that position, that would have been the thought in my mind, because I am no Malusi Bumlwane. But having heard that, it was one of the things that inspired me to believe that wherever I am, whoever I am, there is a role for me in building a better world. And when we talk about empowering generations of audacious leaders, we have to be about convincing them that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what your career is, how much is in your bank account or not in your bank account, how much others look upon you and value you. You can be a leader simply by how you carry yourself in the world. When you don't allow those who dehumanize you to make you feel less than human, you are already an audacious leader. When you refuse to accept the labels that are put on you to diminish you, you are already an audacious leader. When you refuse to be one filled with hate, even in the face of hate, you are already an audacious leader. Whoever you are, wherever you are given the opportunity to show the world that our world can be a better, more just place. We can't all be speakers like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. be asked to be speakers at the Lincoln Memorial to speak to thousands gathered and inspire them. But even if we are not on the platform, we can be in the crowd. You know, in the 1980s, when the South African government had banned most political organizations and arrested most political leaders, my father was one of the voices that was still able to speak, given protection, we believe, by his role in the church. And he organized what became the largest march in Cape Town in South Africa that had happened since the 60s. And people still talk about that march today and how important it was that my father brought people together. And I like to remind people when we talk about that march and show the pictures of my father leading the march with other faith leaders and show the pictures of him speaking to the people. I say, can you imagine how stupid he would have looked doing that if he were alone. That the importance was the thousands of people who gathered, who said, enough is enough. And he was the one given the opportunity to give voice to the frustrations and the dreams of the people. But he would have looked very ridiculous talking about our need for a mass movement if there were nobody there interested in being part of that mass movement. So we don't necessarily have to be the one on the stage to be those making a difference. We're not all going to get Nobel Peace Prizes. Believe you me, I know. Because I have nominated myself at least 6 times. And I have yet to even receive a letter back saying, we received your nomination. Not a thing, just silence. But we don't need to win Nobel Peace Prizes in order to know that our struggle is just. That our struggle is right. That we are working for the world that people like Dr. King dreamt of and worked for. Right now, we can look around our world and our country and have a feeling that maybe the powers of hate and division are winning the war. But let me tell you that can never be true. Hate can never win. Hate can feel overwhelming, overpowering, can make it seem that darkness is in control. But hate can never win. You know why?
Tell us.
Because the energy it takes to spew out hate and division cannot build. All it can do is destroy. And so, if your energy is around destroying, you might think you are destroying your enemies, but the truth is that this world is interconnected. And if you destroy opportunities for those who don't look like you, who don't worship like you, who don't speak your language, then you are destroying opportunities for yourself. You are digging a hole that you will eventually fall into. That hate cannot win because it is negative energy. Those who strive for justice are builders, not destroyers. And so even when it feels as though darkness is in control, the truth is that all it takes to overcome darkness is a small match. Just the smallest light overcomes the deepest darkness.
Tell it.
One of my favorite African proverbs says, in the time of floods, the wise build bridges, the foolish build walls. And what it means is that in times of difficulty, in times of crisis, the wise realize that they have to reach out, that they need to expand the place, the table, whatever it is, that we need new ideas, new voices, new perspectives. That the reason we are in crisis is because we have been doing things that bring us to crisis. And to get out of the crisis, we need to start thinking outside of the boxes that we have built. And that the only way to do that is to bring into the fold diverse perspectives, diverse voices, people with diverse experiences who can help us look at this crisis and imagine new ways of solving our problems. Amen. And the foolish in times of crisis build up their walls around themselves, try to hold on to whatever little bit that they have, and sometimes a little bit that they don't even have. Okay? Let's be honest here, because the price of eggs is not going down, folks. But that we, the foolish, try and isolate themselves even more. Isolation has never, cutting yourself off from other humans has never solved any problem. Not allowing yourself to hear, to see, to experience the gift that is the diversity of the human family means that you limit the possible answers to those difficult questions. Right now, our world is facing climate change that has made droughts and floods and fires and Arctic cold. We had snow in Atlanta last week. And you know we don't know what to do with snow. We like look at it and say, please snow, go away. We can't move. But we have been told that that is going to be more and more our experience. And just as a side note, you know, you don't have to believe in climate change for climate change to believe in you and impact what you do. And the truth is, it is here, whether we acknowledge it or not. And audacious leaders are not afraid to acknowledge the problems that face us. But what they do is say, who is going to help us solve for this? They say, we cannot keep doing what we have been doing, listening to the voices we have been listening to, and hope to get out of this crisis. We have have to be bold and say to those who we have kept away from the table, please come. Let us make this table bigger, because it is only when this table is bigger that our world will be better. And so we can do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We can do away with the title, but the work is not going to end. We can say, we can say that woke is a derogatory term, but the impetus behind being woke will not change. Woke to what is dangerous, woke to what is hopeful, woke to the work that we have to do to make this a better place for those coming after us. We empower generations of audacious leaders when we tell them to dream, and not to dream small, to dream big, to dream of a world where no one is homeless, to dream of a world where no child is hungry, to dream of a world where every single human being is honored for what they are, made in the image of God. To dream big, to dream of a world of justice and freedom and peace for all of God's children. But then we tell them that you can't stop at dreaming. The dream is simply the beginning. The dream is what feeds our imagination. The dream is what lets us know that the lie of today is not permanent. And once we start the dreaming, then we have to start the work of building towards that dream. Normally, when I am asked to give presentations around the life and work and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I stay away from the I Have a Dream speech. And part of the reason I do that is because so often that speech is placed in isolation as though that is the be-all and end-all that Dr. King was. That it is used to market to us a warm, fuzzy, cuddly Dr. Martin Luther King that we can hug like a teddy bear. When Dr. King, he was warm, he was loving, he was nonviolent, but he was determined. You do not murder, assassinate warm, cuddly, fuzzy people. That I remind the generations of audacious leaders coming up that Dr. King was one of the most hated people in this country when he was alive. He was called all manner of derogatory terms. His whole faith was questioned. His whole motivations were questioned. He was called a traitor. He was called a commie. He was called all kinds of horrible words and names because he called out the injustice that was in this world and around the world. He called out the injustice of racism. He called out the injustice of economic poverty. He called out the injustice of poor wages, of poor services, of poor education, of war. He spoke up and spoke out consistently, and for that, he was vilified. And yet, he never allowed that to stop him from speaking, from working, from acting towards the dream that he had. And so, if you plan, if we want generations of audacious leaders, we need to let them know that you might not be loved for the work that you do. You might be vilified for the words that you speak. You might be ostracized for the actions that you take. But if you know that what you are working for is justice, if you know that what you are working for is an expansion of human rights, if you know that what you are working for is a better world for all, not for those who look like you, who think like you, who speak like you, who worship the same God that you do, but that for all of God's creation, then you will be able to withstand the hate, the vilification, the insults, because you will carry within you the dream that motivates you. We are all called to be audacious leaders, to believe that a better world is not just possible, but is actually inevitable. That those who believe in justice are in fact the world's majority. So, audacious leaders of the next generation, I say to you, dream. Dream big. Work wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Speak the words of empowerment and love and justice and peace. And know that the work you are doing will ensure a better world. Maybe not for you, maybe not even for your children, but for your children's children up to the 7th generation. We are the audacious leaders that we have been waiting for. Thank you.